I uncovered the harrowing truth behind Annabelle's cursed origins. I never should have opened that door. That creaking old thing, it sounded alive, almost warning me. But curiosity has its claws in deep. I'd heard the stories. A doll, cursed and sinister. They said she could move, breathe, even whisper in the dead of night. I just had to see for myself that why life was simple before that moment, waking up, going to work, coming home to the same empty rooms. I never believed in the supernatural. It was all just folklore to me until that fateful evening. I walked through the dimly lit corridor of my grandmother's old house, shadows dancing on the walls. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of dust and something metallic. The whispers called to me. Soft, almost pleading. I shivered, goosebumps racing down my arms. I could almost hear my heart pounding. The darkness seemed to thicken around me like a fog, swallowing up all sound except for the faint murmurs that tickled my ears. What were they saying? I couldn't make them out. As I approached the door, my hand trembled. I hesitated. I thought about the story's strange happenings, people going mad. I laughed nervously and pushed the handle down. It was cold. Too cold. The door swung open, revealing a room shrouded in shadow. There she sat, Annabelle, eyes wide, a smile that felt wrong. Was she breathing? The air turned frigid, sharp enough to cut. A chill wrapped around my spine, anxiety creeping in as I stepped inside. The floor creaked under my weight. My breath hitched in my throat. I heard Ida's soft giggle that echoed like a death knell. The hairs on my neck stood up. Something was very, very wrong. Suddenly, a loud crash from the corner of the room sent me spinning around. I gasped. A chair had toppled over, crashing into the ground. The whispers grew louder, urgent. They wrapped around me, suffocating. I couldn't move. My pulse raced, a thunderous rhythm beating in my ears. And then, silence. An eerie, oppressive silence. I felt the weight of eyes on me, penetrating, assessing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer alone. A deep dread settled in the pit of my stomach. Was it just my imagination, or was Annabelle watching me? I was about to step back, to shut the door and block out whatever horrors lay within when it happened. A dark figure materialized in the gloom behind the doll. A twisted shape, moving slowly, deliberately. My chest tightened, breath caught like a fist in my throat. Then everything went black. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness enveloped me like a funeral shroud, the air thick with a chilling torpor that pressed down on my chest. I couldn't move, though I wanted to scream, wanted to flee this blighted place. Yet amid the pitch, the whispers returned, elongated breaths that felt more alive than I was. They twirled around me, brushing against my skin like ghostly fingertips, calling me deeper into the void. Then came the light. A flickering glow broke through the abyss just enough to form a hazy outline of the room. I blinked against it, realizing I lay crumpled on the wooden floor, the door now firmly shut behind me. Panic clawed at my throat. I struggled to rise, but my limbs felt heavy, as if shackled to the ground. It wasn't just Annabelle I had to contend with. I could see now what the darkness had concealed. The walls were lined with old portraits, faces twisted in agony, hollow eyes pleading for release. Shadows shifted in the corners, flitting just beyond the edge of perception. I could almost make out figures, faint silhouettes that danced just outside the reach of the light, shrouded in an unsettling silhouette that set my nerves aflame. help us, help us." Their voices, layered and distorted, crashed against one another, reverberating through my skull like a maddening choir. I pressed my hands to my ears, desperate to block it out, but the din only grew louder, the words twisting with an urgent ferocity. I could feel their anguish seeping into my very soul, each tortured cry like a knife tearing through the veil of my sanity. Against my better judgment, I turned to look at Annabelle once more. Her porcelain face glowed sickly in the feeble light, and to my horror, her expression had changed. The smile was gone, replaced by something darker, a grimace that sent nausea roiling in the pit of my stomach. Her eyes, now glinting pinpricks of black, seemed to bore into me, hollow and insatiable. "Why are you here?" The whispers hissed, a chorus of voices tinged with malice. "You should not have come, child." My heart pounded, and bile rose in my throat as I sprang to my feet, swaying unsteadily. The shadows shifted and coiled, threading closer like serpents, and I backed away until I felt the door at the small of my back. Panic surged through me. I tried the knob, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. "Leave us," a voice growled, low and guttural. I spun toward the sound, my heartbeat an urgent tattoo in my ears. The dark figure emerged fully from the shadows, towering and grotesque. Its limbs were elongated, grotesquely twisted, a mass of shadow that defied the light. It resembled a man only in shape, possessing no discernible features, just a shifting mass of black that absorbed the little light around it. "Help us," the other voices urged, rising and falling like the tide, but the creature seized my attention. It seemed to ripple, as if aggravating the very fabric of reality. "You have already seen too much." Desperation fueled my adrenaline, and I shouted, "What do you want?" My voice cracked, echoing eerily in the oppressive air. That might have been a mistake. With a roar that shook the floor, the creature lunged forward, a surge of coldness sweeping through the room, freezing me in place. My breath became a visible cloud as the air around me turned to ice, distortion coiling around me like a suffocating blanket. Panic seized me as the whispers became shrill, amalgamating into a single terrifying realization: I was not just a witness. I had been called here, and now I belonged to this wicked place. As the creature reached for me, shadows folding into its grotesque limbs, determination sparked and I fought. I struggled against the paralyzing terror, my fingers clawing at the door, praying that with every ounce of strength I could muster, I might break free. But just as the knob finally gave way, a horrifying realization struck me. The whispers crescendoed, now screaming, and I turned my head just in time to see Annabelle's form evaporate into the air, replaced by dozens of skeletal figures, eyes flaring like embers, faces twisted in unearthly glee. Then I was yanked backward, the darkness closing in, swallowing the last hints of light. The realization pierced through the panic: there was no escaping the hell I had unwittingly entered. "No!" I screamed, my voice barely a breath in the overwhelming cacophony. And in that moment of despair, I felt their cold hands grasping me, pulling me down into an abyss of writhing darkness. A single voice rose above the others, as chilling as the grave: "You will never escape," and in that final instant, my world faded to black. I couldn't tell if I'd fallen or if I was floating, suspended in some damned limbo where time lost all meaning. The cold hands that grasped at me felt as though they were permeating my very essence, siphoning away what little warmth and hope remained. They pulled me deeper into the chasm, past screams and shadows that assailed my senses like frenzied wasps. Suddenly, I jolted awake, gasping in a damp, musty corridor. The walls bore the same oppressive weight as the room before, adorned with peeling wallpaper, adorned with grotesque patterns that seemed to swirl when I wasn't directly looking at them. My heart raced as I scrambled to my feet, recognizing the oppressive familiarity of my surroundings. The house itself was a living organism, intent on tormenting me. "Help us," the whispers returned, slithering into my ears from all directions. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to stave off the sound echoing inside my skull. But the words were too insistent, too desperate. "Help us before she does." The chilling reminder of Annabelle surged to the forefront of my mind, and I pushed down the wave of nausea. I turned right and began to move cautiously down the corridor, the dim light casting an eerie glow on the warped floorboards that creaked beneath my weight. With each step, shadows danced on the edges of my vision, flickering in and out of existence. I kept my gaze forward, gripping the edges of the hallway as if that could keep me grounded. I wanted to call out for help, but fear wedged itself in my throat, stifling my voice. A voice emerged from the shadows ahead of me, dripping with a sickly sweet allure. It was an older woman, her stature hunching beneath the weight of heavy layers that glimmered with a silvery sheen. Her eyes were hollow sockets, yet they glowed faintly, like dying stars. "You shouldn't be here, child." "Not yet, who are you?" I stammered, backpedaling instinctively. Panic surged, but curiosity flickered behind my fear. "Where's Annabelle?" Her laughter glided through the air like the slithering of a serpent. "Ah, sweet Annabelle, she dances through these halls, a mere fragment of a tragic past. But she has other plans. She wishes to play." The woman's voice took on a chilling edge, eyes narrowing dangerously. "And her games are never gentle." Without thinking, I darted past her, heart racing, desperate to escape her grasp. The corridor twisted and turned, an impossibility of angles that defied logic, each fleeting moment intensifying the horrifying sense that I was being watched, scrutinized by unseen eyes lurking just beyond the fabric of reality itself. Ahead, a door loomed. I raced towards it, the whispers becoming a frantic cacophony around me. I threw it open, a storm of wind slamming against my chest. I stumbled into a room more grotesque than any nightmare, a parlor frozen in time, adorned with shattered mirrors reflecting disturbing images that felt all too real. At the center of the room sprawled a faded velvet couch, where Annabelle sat, her posture unnaturally still. "Look what you've found." Her voice chirped with a honeyed mockery that dripped like poison. "You've come just in time." "Time for what?" I demanded, fighting to keep the quaver from my voice, but the fear clawed ferociously at my resolve. "Time to discover the truth," she whispered, her grin stretching unnaturally wide, revealing teeth that glinted like shards of glass. "You've been chosen, you see. Chosen to witness the birth of our joy. As I retreated in horror, the room quaked, shaking like an angry beast. The shadows blaring around me grew more turbulent, spiraling into a vortex that threatened to consume me whole. Annabelle rose and twirled with an unnatural grace, her form shimmering as shadows cascaded from her like an ominous cloud. The other figures began to materialize from the reflections, wretched souls with ghastly visages, each more horrifying than the last. "Join us, child." They shrieked in unison, the chorus becoming a terrifying symphony of lustful rage. "Or suffer with the rest." The windows shattered, and the parlor erupted in a maelstrom of tortured souls, swirling like a cyclone that threatened to engulf me. I stumbled back, desperate to escape, but the door snatched itself from view, replaced by simultaneous flashes of memory's terrible events, lives shattered and oxygen stolen. At that moment, I understood the weight of the curse that encircles the house and its dwellers. Annabelle, the drawn-out specter of something far beyond simply a girl, she was the very heart of this madness. "Will you play?" she asked, hunger dancing in her hollow eyes. Before I could answer, the room lunged towards me, darkness coiled and constricted, a suffocating embrace pulling tighter than any horror I had ever known. My legs buckled, and I hit the floor, the cold seeping into my bones, the world spinning wildly on its axis. Then, as sudden as the trap had sprung, everything stilled, and silence fell. The darkness murmured with anticipation, pulsating around me, breathless and expectant. An image flickered on the far wall, an ornate mirror began to ripple, revealing something far beyond my worst nightmares. And that was when I saw a figure emerge, looming behind me, whispering my name with an intimacy that chilled my very soul. "Help us," it said softly, before the world faded away once more. I felt a chill seeping into my bones, like icy fingers gripping me from behind. The solitary whisper, "Help us," echoed in the cavernous silence of the parlor, heavy and soaked in despair. I turned slowly, dread coiling around my heart, and my eyes locked on the mirror. What had first been merely a ripple now thickened into the silhouette of a figure, a distorted echo clad in shadows. A sharp scream cut through the silence, and I realized it was coming from me. The figure in the mirror twisted, its form warping grotesquely as it stepped closer, breaking through the thin veneer of glass as if it were nothing but fog. I stumbled back, nearly falling into the depths of the onyx vortex that still undulated at my feet. "Don't you remember me?" The figure called, voice soft yet resonating with an unbearable weight of familiarity. It stepped farther into the room, revealing the features of a once familiar face, tinged with decay and despair. No, I gasped. It can't be. The woman before me was a twisted reflection of my mother, her once familiar grace replaced by an unsettling decay. You left us," she croaked, her eyes two sunken voids almost spilling sorrow. Behind her stood a crowded tableau of the lost faces that flickered through the shadows, each one gnashing and staring, pleading for release. "Help us!" they cried, their voices merging into a dissonant harmony, and the very air trembled with their grief. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, the parlor morphing into a sideshow of tormenting memories. Snapshots of my childhood spun erratically before my eyes, the moments I had long buried, intangible yet vivid, each one a shard of shattering pain. I staggered, grasping at my head as the cacophony of voices surged, each demanding attention, each a reminder of betrayal, a family abandoned to the relentless grip of Annabelle's curse. No. I howled, as if drowning in a sea of guilt. "I didn't know. I thought you were gone." The words fell from my lips like stones, weighted with regret, as the shadows of the room began to crawl towards me, hungry and insatiable. Too late. Annabelle's laughter intermingled with the wails of the forgotten, every note a harbinger of my impending doom. "You can't run from your past. You were chosen to bear witness, and witness you shall." The walls of the parlor warped and twisted, contorting reality until it became overwhelming. Objects began to float, swirling like dust in the violent wind, as the shadows surged. They filled the room like dark water, lapping at my heels and dragging me into the abyss. "Please, let me go," I begged, reaching out towards my moth-era distorted specter in this hellscape. She reached back, her expression twisted by despair, eyes pleading yet furious. "Help us," she implored again, her voice breaking, nearly swallowed by the noise. The shadows lunged for me, tendrils of darkness aiming straight for my heart as I felt ice envelope me. I was rooted to the spot, mind racing as Annabelle's grinning visage emerged again, looming over me like a malevolent spirit. "What is the price of freedom?" she asked slyly, tilting her head. "If only you had sacrificed more, perhaps you would have been the one set free." As I stood frozen in horror, the ceiling above me fractured in an explosion of mirrors, each shard reflecting a different horrific fate. Or was it my own? I caught a glimpse of hands reaching from behind the glass, cold and clawing. I screamed again, pleading not for help, but for the release, to just forget. Then, the reflective light transformed into a blinding brightness, and in that moment of pain and clarity, I saw Ida door behind my mother, warped in shadows but somehow beckoning to me. It was a way out, a passage to escape the horror encroaching on my sanity. With a primal scream, I leaped toward it, bursting free from the chains of memory and despair, but as I surged forward, I felt fingers grasp my wrist, yanking me back, pulling me into the void. The screams grew louder, a cacophony of anguish now drowning out my own voice. "Play with us," Annabelle sang in a sing-song voice, and the shadows closed in. With a finality that paralyzed my heart, and then, I was falling again, not into darkness but into a blinding light so intense it ignited every cell within me. I screamed as I plummeted through it, feeling the weight of every sorrow colliding against my body, until the light fractured, and I found myself suspended once more, but this time it was different, cold hands grasping at my legs, suffocating the breath from my lungs as the shadows whispered their final chant of despair, "Help us or become one of us." The last shred of free will slipped from my fingers, and then everything went silent as I faced an endless expanse of blackness, a voice echoing in the void that chilled me to the core, "Welcome back." In the stillness that followed, a dread settled over me like the thick fog that clung to the moors, suffocating yet oddly familiar. The voice echoed, wrapping around me like a shroud. It is a voice I had heard before, one that lived in the recesses of my memory, surfacing from nightmares but never in a corporeal form. This time, however, it poured into the void, cold and palpable. "Welcome back." It was Annabelle, as if released from the depths of my consciousness, her voice smooth as silk, yet with a rasp that hinted at the rot within. "It's time for the games to begin." The darkness peeled back, revealing a twisted playroom, an unworldly mockery of childhood innocence. Wooden toys, now cracked and splintered, lay scattered about, a doll with one eye missing, a jack-in-the-box frozen in a permanent pose of horror, its laughter replaced by a disturbing resonance that echoed through the air. My heart hammered as I beheld the detail in this shadow realm. Every chipped edge, every tattered corner reeked of decay and sorrow. Around me, the lost emerged souls trapped in this grotesque limbo, their eyes wide with torment. Their whispers turned into audible cries, clawing at my mind, "Help us play for our freedom." Each face a reminder that each had once been full of life, sucked dry by the insatiable abyss, much like what I felt creeping into my core, a hunger gnawing relentlessly. "Freedom comes at a cost," Annabelle purred as she knocked a carved horse across the ground with a flick of her pale fingers. The moment it hit the ground, the room vibrated with an unnatural hum. "You must decide, willingly or not, which memory you wish to offer for amusement." With every utterance of her chilling reply, the room darkened further, the walls seemingly closing in, thickening with despair and heavy regret. Shadows danced in the corners, flitting between the echoes of grotesque laughter and echoing cries. It was a cacophony that clawed at my sanity, the kind of torment that makes you question your own existence. Thunder rumbled outside the confines of this warped paradise, and the shadows seemed to pulse with excitement. "Choose," Annabelle insisted, her presence more tangible, as if feeding off the fear that cascaded from my very soul. "One snippet from your past, and they shall be freed." I faltered as images crashed into my mind like tidal waves, faces of the lost I had betrayed, moments of anguish layered onto moments of regret. My mother's face, once etched in pain and blame, bore an expression of hesitant hope before the trepidation eclipsed it. "I would rather die than play this game," I shouted, my voice gaining a treble of defiance, though it trembled from deep within. Annabelle's laughter rolled through the playroom like a blast of cold wind. "But you're already dead inside," she jeered. "You know what you need to do. The door awaits you." As despair clawed at my throat, an idea flickered like a dying flame. The symbols etched in the shadows adjacent told me of sacrifices, how they had clung to memories for salvation. It was both a horror and a revelation, one that chained my choice to the ghastly fate of others. "Choose," she shrieked, the shadows swirling tighter around her, and I could feel the air tense with anticipation. "Let the game commence." Then, as if to spur me toward the brink of decision, a face appeared from the shadows, not one of torment but of joy, ringing with laughter and warmth. My sister's innocent visage crystallized before me, laughing in a sunlit glade filled with blooming flowers, a scene of serenity long etched away by guilt and madness. Memories cascaded around me like autumn leaves torn from their branches within the rising storm of despair. "Your sister's laughter," Annabelle whispered, her haunting smile beckoning me. "Choose her, and they can be free. Your mother, your family, all it takes is one memory, or keep your sister for yourself." In that moment, everything converged. The shadows writhed, desperate for my response, yet something clawed deeper, an instinct for preservation battling the gnawing pull of familial loyalty. But at what price was I willing to save them and ensnare another in this nightmarish game? I took a deep breath, heart racing, as I found myself reaching for the glowing shimmer of my sister's memory, knowing it would mean giving up more than I could imagine, forfeiting not just a moment but perhaps the very essence of my being. Then, the room exploded into chaos, carrying with it Annabelle's knowing eyes locked onto me. Just as I made my decision, the air crackled with energy, and everything imploded into darkness. Then, a sharp pain erupted in my wrist, strong enough to pull me back from the precipice of my choice, my own breath hitching as I felt the black ichor of shadow gripping me tighter. I whimpered in realization, the final moment of clarity racing against the binding twilight of tangibility as I stared into Annabelle's eyes, finding not darkness within but the reflection of my own terror. "Help us," my sister's voice called out softly from nowhere, but I caught a glimpse of her face amidst the horrid shadows, the reflection of pure tranquility mirrored in the chaos, one I almost stepped into, yet I felt my heart grasp the truth. "No," I shouted with a force born of desperation. "I won't play your game." But my voice was swallowed whole, drowned within the laughter of the lost, echoing violently in my ears. And just as I retreated into the darkness, a clarity washed over me. I was not simply my own savior in this game, I was the pawn, caught between the forces of despair and betrayal. Suddenly, everything shifted. The very ground beneath me quaked violently as I felt myself tumbling once more, like a dice cast by an unseen hand. "Welcome back," Annabelle's voice rang out once more, but it was deeper now, layered with the screams and laughter of the countless souls trapped within this cursed game. The choice was never just yours, and then, without warning, I was no longer alone. The darkness pulsed, and from it emerged dozens of hands, clawing towards me, each grasp as cold as the void I now belonged to. I could barely register the twisted faces rising behind them. Just before finally everything went black. "Playtime is just beginning," Annabelle whispered from behind a spectral curtain of shadows, as laughter rippled through the void, carrying the weight of all the sacrifices yet to come. The world around me contorted and twisted, momentarily losing all sense of direction as I spun in a vortex of darkness. Whispers encircled me, growing louder with each second until they coalesced into an agonizing cacophony that stung the edges of my consciousness. My eyes flickered open to reveal a vast, desolate landscape swallowed by twilight, a realm devoid of form or function, stretching endlessly beyond what my mind could grasp. The air was thick, suffused with an acrid stench that made my stomach churn, a noxious miasma that gnawed at my resolve. As my feet found solid ground, I realized I was not alone. Shadows slithered along the periphery of my vision, fleeting and ephemeral, yet unmistakably hungry vessels of despair searching for the next victim to consume. Before I could gather my wits, a figure emerged from the darkness, tall and gaunt, with sickly pale skin stretched taut against a skeletal frame. It wore a tattered gown resembling remnants of a bridal dress, its veil draping over its hollow eyes like a shroud of mourning. A low, throaty chuckle escaped its lips, sending tremors through the chilling air. "You think you can refuse the game?" it hissed, the voice laced with ice. "You've already made your choice, dear player. You merely delayed the inevitable." As those words sunk into me like a blade, I felt a profound sorrow radiating from the spectral being. It was agony wrapped in remorse. My heart quickened as it stepped forward, revealing more of its ghastly form, a twisted reflection of the mother I recognized, her face a grotesque parody of compassion. "What they won't tell you, child, is that the games we play are bound to the hearts we leave behind. Freedom comes with binding others to this eternal cycle," she continued, her eyes glimmering with malicious delight. "You desire your sister, yet in her laughter lies your greatest betrayal." Chilled to the bone, I recoiled as visions of my sister's laughter morphed grotesquely into cries for help. Memories flashed before me, her outstretched arms, pleading for rescue from the shadows swirling around her. With each recollection came an overwhelming sense of dread. How could I have thought to let her go, even in the shadow of despair? What must I do? I asked weakly, the words choking me as I fought against an invisible current that sought to pull me deeper into the morass of shadows around us. A grin spread across the spectral figure's face, an expression void of warmth. "You must embrace the truth, dear heart. Use your past to mold the future. Let go of the love you harbor to escape this grasp," she purred softly, lips seemingly dripping with malice. A wave of nausea washed over me, reeling from the sickening reality that perhaps my own despair mirrored that of these tortured souls. They were reflections of every temptation I'd felt, the doubt, the guilt festering in the cracks of my heart, drawing them closer. Shadows twitched and pulsed with their sinister glee, urging me to succumb to the darkness, to rewrite my script of survival at the cost of innocence. No. I won't sacrifice anyone. I dared to shout, my voice wavering but defiantly rising above the cacophony of wailing abandon from the depths. They shifted, a tapestry of shadows that vibrant with an oppressive energy. Beneath their grotesque forms, I spotted familiar faces, stitched from memories I thought buried, their eyes pleading for deliverance or revenge. I couldn't decipher which. Stubbornness, the figure hissed, a finger of curling darkness beckoning toward me. "But you will see. The cost is ever mounting, and the darkness will claim what is owed. Let the game unfurl in your heart's name, sacrifice as you must." As it drew closer, the pungent scent intensified, enveloping me, trapping my breath in a vice grip. Panic surged as the shadows coiled tighter, fingers slipping around my wrists, threatening to pull me into their suffocating embrace. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. An electrifying crack split the air as lightning clawed across the sky, illuminating a spiraling staircase that wound upward into the roiling clouds above. An ethereal path leading into an unknown realm bathed in colors that bled beautifully into each other, offering an almost welcoming warmth amidst the omnipresent dread. The figure's mocking laughter rang out, incandescent with the certainty that the warmth was an illusion. The heavens are but a mirage. You will see far more dreadful and twisted truths await you higher up, it taunted, eyes glinting with wicked delight. Reach for it, it rasped, the shadows shrieking in agreement. Do not abandon the memories calling you home. Only then will you realize what must truly be sacrificed. Compelled by unseen forces, my feet began ascending the staircase, each step reverberating with desperate whispers that ignited remnants of my spirit's resolve. And with every step, my heart trembled under the weight of a choice lurking just out of reach, a decision waiting to ensnare me in its web of darkness and sacrifice. Suddenly, a soul shot up from below, a figure bursting forth from the abyss, dread and anger mingling in the air. Pushed beyond sense, the dark entity lunged at me before hanging precariously on the edge of the staircase, desperation alive in its expression. As it clawed, I recognized a familiar facet was my sister, calling my name, her voice resonating above the chaos echoing around us. Help me! She screamed, fingertips grazing my own, warmth bleeding into the crushing chill. Turn back. Be stronger than the shadows. Caught between the pleas of the damned life I left behind and the dimming light of sacrifice looming overhead, a blinding light erupted behind me from the staircase as reality twisted once more, pulling me into its grasp, and as I fought to remain rooted to the ground, the ethereal shadows spun around me, their chilling gasps growing louder, an anguished chorus that clawed at the remnants of my sanity. With every passing heartbeat, I teetered on the precipice of fate, one dangerous choice away from a plunge into unfathomable darkness or the possibility of saving the lost. That I in that moment, a cruel grin stretched across Annabelle's visage as she emerged once more from the maw of shadows. Bond or break, child, she beckoned from the edge of the abyss. The game will reveal its final truth. Are you ready to unveil your fate? And then the ground beneath me shattered, plunging into nothingness, with both the cries of the lost and the laughter of my sister circling around me as I fell into the void, unsure of what awaited me on the other side. As I plummeted into the void, time lost all meaning, a suffocating darkness swallowing me whole. The cacophony of my sister's voice merged with the shadowy whispers, pinpricks of agony that seared into my soul, urging me to grasp at the familiar warmth I once knew. I was weightless and yet crushed by the enormity of my choices. The fear coiled tighter around my chest, constricting like a serpent, and my heart raced as I recalled her laughter twisted into cries for help. Then, abruptly, my descent ceased. I tumbled onto cold, damp ground, gasping, a bitter taste coating my tongue. I was not in the void anymore but within a dilapidated church, the rotting timbers groaning around me. Flickering candles illuminated the crumbling walls, their glow casting monstrous shadows that danced excitedly in corners of the forsaken sanctuary. The air was dense with the sour scent of decay and a palpable anticipation, as if the very structure was holding its breath in dread of what was to come. Panic surged anew, my fingers trembled as I pushed myself up, scanning the desolation. The pews, once proud and regal, now lay scattered and broken like the remnants of forgotten faith. Dust motes swirled in the dim light as if specters of past worshippers lingered, their vacant eyes locking onto mine. Help her! A voice rasped from a silhouette tucked away in the shadows. I turned sharply, my pulse echoing in my ears. But the figure stayed crouched, half embedded in darkness, its features obscured, save for a glinting pair of deeply set eyes, awash in sorrow. The shadows around it twisted and writhed, forming anguished faces, ghosts trapped in a perpetual lament. You must remember, child. The shadow crooned, its voice vibrating with urgency. The answer lies in the blood that binds you. Face the truth of your ancestry. Only then can you sever the curse that entwines your sister and all those lost. Who are you? I stammered, fear leaking into my words as I took a hesitant step backward. The eyes glimmered more fiercely, beckoning me closer. I am what you fear the most, the remnant of your family's betrayal under the guise of love, the figure rasped, grotesque and ghostly. To free her, you must embrace the legacy of those before you, the joys and the horrors entwined since the dawn of your kin. Face Annabelle's curse, only by standing amidst the shadows of your own blood will you reach the end. The shapeless figure began to unfurl itself from the darkness, revealing a face that bore an uncanny resemblance to Annabelle's features twisted through a gruesome lens of despair. My breath hitched in my throat as I took in the sight, the very air around us thickening with unnamable dread. Accept the truth. It wailed, its voice reverberating across the chamber, blending with the chorus of anguished souls swirling around. The shadows solidified, reaching toward me as if alive, shadowy hands grasping for something they couldn't have. With every anguished scream that pierced the air, the memories surged forth, painstaking moments of my family's history flashing by in a surreal panorama. Whispers of unpaid debts, of sacrifices made in the name of power, dragged their way into my consciousness. Each figure revealed carried with them secrets entwined in sorrow, whispering my lineage's sins and the dark pact forged by blood. Find her, the shadow implored, its hands stretching outward in desperation, fingers parting the shadows like desperate tendrils. Save her before it consumes you both. What was I to do? I was left teetering on the brink of my fate. The church trembled, its foundations roiling beneath me, cavernous cracks spreading like veins across the stone, as if the very walls were competing for my attention. Suddenly, a moment of clarity struck me with the force of a tidal wave. What if I could reach Annabelle? Perhaps that final connection would unravel everything, peeling back the layers of chaos shrouding our past. But in doing so, would I become a vessel of the darkness, a pawn in this cursed game? Before I could act on my realization, the air thickened, and shadows burst forth. From the ground, forming a gnarled tree, a physical manifestation of tormented memories. It twisted upward, branches stretching grotesquely, laden with fruits resembling faces, each expressing a myriad of emotions, agony, joy, betrayal, all the facets of life extinguished. Sickened, I staggered back, heart racing as I knew deep down that my sister was but a breath away, lost within this web of ancestral horror. If I wished to save her, I would need to confront the malevolence entwined in every branch of this tainted legacy. Just then, a keening wail erupted from the shadows, morphed into sounds of a heart-wrenching chime. Time is fleeting. The voice rasped, desperate, demanding. Discover the truth that binds you, or plunge into the depths of despair where the echoes of your family shall remain forever lost. I turned to seize that flickering hope, my sister's name spilling from my lips, when suddenly the ground trembled violently. With a resounding crash, the tree split open, and from the gaping chasm unfurled tendrils of darkness coiling around my ankles, pulling me toward its dreadful maw. I fought against the gripping tendrils, the anguished faces on the tree twisted in a sickening dance of torment. Tears streamed down my face as I caught one last haunting glimpse of Annabelle, her visage appearing among the shadows, stretching out a fragile hand. Please, don't forget me. She begged, a fleeting whisper that pulled at my heartstrings even as the shadows threatened to consume me whole. And just like that, the world faded into a consuming black, leaving me with only the chilling echo of her voice as I tumbled into the heart of darkness, caught between the past and what lay before me. The darkness enveloped me, a cloak woven from fear and despair that pressed against my skin like cold iron. I felt the tendrils of shadow curling tighter around my legs, dragging me toward the yawning abyss. My heart raced with the urgency of a caged animal, thrashing against the confines of its prison. With a surge of desperate energy, I clawed at the obsidian strands, feeling their clammy texture slip between my fingers as I fought to break free. Annabelle! I cried out, the name clawing its way from the depths of my throat, laced with longing and desperation. I slammed my fists against the ground, the damp earth solid beneath me, but it was all an illusion. The earth was giving way, teetering on the edges of some unseen void, threatening to consume me whole. The gnarled tree twisted violently, its branches reaching down with a malevolent intent, its grotesque fruits dripping with moisture that resembled tears. From each grotesque form, anguished voices erupted, pleading minds which echoed a singular message: do not forsake your blood, you will join the sacrifice. The thought sent a bolt of terror straight through me. This was no innocent monument, it was a collector of souls, a maw for darkness. The faces twisted in unison, shouting words that imprinted themselves into my consciousness like a curse. "Your time is short," they cried, their voices a horrible chorus of despair. "Every moment you linger here tightens the noose around your bond." Just as my resolve began to waver, a flicker of light caught my eye, a sliver of hope amidst the consuming blackness. Annabelle's silhouette emerged from within the chaos, her features illuminated by a gentle luminescence, juxtaposed against the malevolence that surrounded us. "You must remember, sister." Her voice cut through the dread, wrapping around my heart like a vine. "The truth is buried within the stories of the past." With renewed determination, I forced myself away from the encroaching tendrils. I scrambled forward, my feet finding purchase on the damp ground, and with every inch I gained, the darkness hissed as if furiously protesting my rejection of its grasp. The edges of the chasm trembled, the shadows writhing, eager for my surrender. "Cling to the memories, the blood, the love," Annabelle urged, her form shimmering with urgency. I reached for her, fingers stretching, desperate to grasp her essence, to draw her back from the cusp of oblivion. Suddenly, the church around us began to pulsate, walls closing in, groaning as they echoed the unspeakable. The flickering candles spun wildly, casting erratic shadows that drew grotesque images across the walls, a myriad of lives snuffed out, souls lost in ceaseless agony. I felt the weight of their despair crashing upon me like waves, drowning me in their pain. "Listen." Annabelle's voice resonated powerfully now, transgressing the din of the lost souls. "You must uncover the truth, our family, what they did, the sacrifice, it was all to maintain the veil." The word struck a chord, resonating deep within me. The sacrifices had been made not to gain power, but to protect us from the wrath of something much darker, an entity that sought to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. I grasped the echo of whispered secrets floating in my mind like brittle leaves on a tempest-swept sea. "Your full name," the dark figure murmured with chilling familiarity, the sly undertone slicing through the wails like a blade. "Born into the legacy of annihilation, you are bound to this darkness while your sister remains a cog in its cruel machine. Uncover the legacy written in blood, or rest with them forever lost, shackled to the fate of your family." "No!" I screamed, clutching my head in torment. "I won't be tied to their darkness. I will save her." Just as I declared this, the ground beneath me began to quake like a living entity, every surface vibrating with a terrible promise. The gnarled tree shuddered, branches snapping violently as one of its fruits fell, bursting upon contact with the earth. A horrific sound erupted, a sound that shook my core, and from the remnants spilled a tattooed darkness, seeping forth with perilous intent. A sense of dread unfurled in the air, wrapping tightly around me, squeezing until I gasped at in a motion so sudden that it robbed me of breath. The darkness rose, coiling like a serpent, snapping, and from its maw erupted a smattering of ghostly figures, shadows of my ancestors, each displaying the deep scars of their grievances, their faces malignant and twisted in grief and rage. "My daughter," one figure sobbed, a female ghost whose features blurred into the next, "you were meant to bear the truth. You must finish what we began, you are the key," roared another, the force of their voice smashing against my chest like a hammer. The bond between Annabelle and me flickered, stretching in ways that felt raw and painful, and I could feel it unraveling in the chaotic melange of memories surging within me. Before I could process it, the very darkness before me pulsed, swirling hungrily. "Remember your legacy, or be devoured by it." They shrieked in unison, their voices merging into a cacophony that overwhelmed my senses. I grasped my sister's name, digging deep into the memories of our childhood, of the laughter and love, pushing against the rising tide of despair. But then, everything shifted. A pull ignited within me, an inescapable force dragging me to the center of the truth, blurring the line between what I would uncover and what would consume me. The seam of our familial past tightened grotesquely, unraveling a single thread, the darkest, most visceral truth that lay buried in the hollows of my heart. And as I began to unearth this harrowing reality, the walls of the church shook violently, and a shadowy hand grasped the edge of the chasm, inching over with barren intent. "Will you choose to see?" it hissed, jagged teeth glinting with anticipation. Before I could respond, a tidal wave of darkness surged forth, threatening to engulf my mind entirely. Annabelle's face splintered before my eyes, morphing into a multitude of other faces, all crying out, trapped in a moment of eternal horror, while the whispers of my ancestors filled the air. In that moment, I realized with dawning horror that the clarity I sought was fast slipping into an abyss of realization, leaving only anguish in its wake. I was at the precipice of revelation, yet all around me was oblivion. And as the shadows burst forth, their grasp a seething mass, I felt my very essence start to tear apart, with one whisper clawing its way through the cacophony, "Remember, remember, or lose them forever." And amidst the dark surge, in a last flicker of defiance, I gasped, "I will not let go, Annabelle, I will find you." But the darkness had already begun to close in around me, and in a blur of motion, I was dragged deeper into the mystery of my bloodline, deep into the legacy that had lain dormant for centuries. As I felt the chilling grasp of despair cradle my heart, I knew the final revelation awaited just beyond the threshold of engulfing night, and I was teetering on the edge of oblivion. In the second's flickering pulse, the abyss threatened to collapse onto itself, a sinister maw draped in shadow eager to devour me. I fought against the dark tide, clawing backward, but the overwhelming force hungered for my submission, sinking itself deeper into my essence. The walls of the church began to pulsate with a dreadful rhythm, matching the frantic beats of my heart. The air thickened, swirling with whispers both familiar and sinister, echoes of my blood calling my name. "Embrace us," sneered the darkness, its tone a guttural mockery. "You cannot escape the truth." I pressed my palms against my ears, blocking out the tormented cries that begged to pull me under. The faded memories of laughter, hopes, and warmth collapsed under the weight of ancestral grief. The familiar warmth of Annabelle's spirit faded, the flickering light that had brought clarity now snuffed out, leaving only the bitter taste of desperation. And yet, in my darkest hour, a flicker of resolve ignited. "I will uncover who we are," I declared defiantly, summoning courage I didn't know I possessed. The stifling air trembled, and the shadows recoiled momentarily, caught in confusion. My father's words echoed through my mind, snippets of his stories weaving together, fragments of a family history that hinted at secrets I had long disregarded. "Beyond this darkness lies a truth," I whispered to the encroaching void. "And I will find it." With renewed purpose, I felt the tendrils of despair releasing their grip, just enough for me to surge forward, propelled by the bond shared between Annabelle and me, our history tracing a luminous line through the dark. Propelled onward, I stumbled toward the altar, that grotesque platform which had witnessed so much suffering. As I reached it, something stirred. A sliver of light twined with the roots of the gnarled tree provided a flicker of life against the impending darkness. In that fleeting moment, shadows danced wildly, and the faces of my ancestors materialized within them, their longing a desperate plea, their torment pouring through the cracks of their faded forms. "Only through sacrifice can the veil be upheld," they chanted, voices coagulating like thickened fog around me. "What have you done? What price do we pay?" I lashed out, raw emotion threading through my plea. The connection to Annabelle flickered, sparking an echo of her presence within the chaos. Suddenly, the gnarled roots trembled violently beneath my feet, answering my cries. They twisted and writhed, churning as if alive until they burst forth from the earth, revealing a hidden compartment beneath the altar. A small, ornate box lay nestled within the embrace of the roots, ancient sigils carved into its surface that throbbed with an ominous energy. With trembling hands, I pried it open, unleashing a rush of cold air marked by a horrid scent like the grave being disturbed. Inside lay an assortment of items, a lock of hair encased in glass, a crumbling parchment, and a tiny, rusted key that seemed to resonate with the pulse of the darkness. "Remember," the voices murmured, entreating me with a fervor that sent chills down my spine. That I grasped the lock of hair, feeling its silken strands glide through my fingers, and a tidal wave of memories washed over me. Startling images of a ritual, a shadow-shrouded figure standing between two silhouettes engulfed in blinding light. I gasped as I recognized the figures, Annabelle and the remnants of a lost ancestor, faces reflecting a torment that bore down upon me with unparalleled weight. confronting this burden, I clutched the box tightly. What did you do? Why were you sacrificed? My voice trembled, desperation clawing at every word. Bear the burden, remember your kin, take back what was stolen. The disembodied voices strained against the thick barrier separating this world from the next. The air around the altar surged, and the shadows writhed violently, tightening their grip as whispers implored me with newfound urgency. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shuddered violently. The effects of the incantation seemed to awaken something old and malevolent within the earth. I stumbled back, the connection to the darkness abruptly severing, and shadows surged forth, twisting grotesquely in a fury that defied the very fabric of reality. With staggering clarity, the darkness unveiled a horrific vision, a creature, impossibly vast, whose very essence pulsed with fury and malice, the distant reflection of my bloodline lost to time. Its glowing eyes bore down upon me, glistening like obsidian, ravenous and unforgiving. Your blood called to us, child of torment, it hissed with a voice that caressed the edges of sanity itself. You will pay the price for your ancestors' sins. With panic clawing at my chest, I scrambled backward, clutching the box as a last defense against the impending dread. The shadows coalesced, blocking all paths as the vile entity loomed closer, spirit fractures crackling with an energy that crackled through the air like charging lightning. Annabelle. I screamed, the name raw and torn from my lips as the darkness lashed out at me, wreathing me in a swirling tempest of despair and dread. The keening wails of my ancestors encircled me, urging me to remember, to awaken, igniting a spark deep within me. As the shadow creature bore down, I thrust the box forward instinctively, as if it could serve as a shield against the rising tide. Darkness lashed against the box, recoiling with a furious scream, as the seal began to unravel in blinding flashes of light. But in that fleeting moment of hope, as shards of long-buried truths erupted around me, I felt the ground tremble beneath me, a glitch in the fabric of existence. And just like that, time fractured as the darkness surged, claiming possession over my senses once more. With a final harrowing scream, the veil ripped wide open, exposing me to a chasm of unfurling nightmares beyond understanding. There, in the midst of my family's anguish, I glimpsed my sister's face, serene yet twisted in torment, a fate looming closer. I felt myself slipping, falling, lost to the layers of my own legacy, and in the depths of that endless void, my last thought was a haunting echo of the truth I had ventured to uncover, as the darkness laughed and enveloped me entirely. Remember, or you will lose her forever. And in that moment of despair, as the shadows claimed their prize, I understood, the battle was far from over, and the horrors yet remained untold. The darkness wrapped around me, a suffocating embrace that felt all too familiar, as the shadows warped and writhed, dragging me deeper into the vortex of despair. I was losing myself again, surrendering to the relentless tides of the abyss like so many souls before me. Every heartbeat throbbed with anguish, an echo of countless whispers that pleaded for release, a symphony of sorrow that resonated through the very core of my being. And then, I fell. It was not the disorienting plunge into blackness that had come to define my existence within this cursed realm, but rather a sensation of weightlessness, a release, a fleeting moment of clarity amidst the chaos. I landed softly upon a cold surface, the dampness seeping through my clothes, addressing me like a lover coaxing me back from the brink. As I gathered my breath, the air crackled with static, and flashes of light flickered through the dark. Shadows trembled in anticipation, as if they were watching, waiting for my next move. Help us, came the fervent cry, familiar yet distant, a chorus of anguished voices that belonged to the ones I had lost. My heart raced as I stood, and glancing around, I realized I was back in the dilapidated church, yet it was transformed, twisted further into grotesque shapes that mocked the remnants of memory. The altar rose before me, adorned not with the promise of salvation but with spectral relics of my blood lineage, a tribute to the curse entwined within my family's history. The atmosphere crackled with eerie electricity, shadows collecting like tears as the light flickered above, piercing through the shroud of despair. In the heart of this madness, I was confronted by blurred visions, faces swirling beneath layers of darkness, voices intertwining in a desperate plea that stung against my senses. Only you can free us, but how? How could I save them while losing myself in the process? With tremors coursing through my body, I stumbled toward the altar, drawn in by the weight of ancestral sins and promises left unfulfilled. As I reached the stark, cold edge, the ornate vessel that held the remnants of my past seemed to pulse, waiting for my touch. "I will not lose you," I whispered, grasping for a flicker of hope amid the chaos. My fingers trembled as I opened it, revealing a tapestry of items I had only seen in fleeting memories: a lock of hair, a blood-stained crest, old photographs of the loved ones I had thought I'd left behind. The fragmented scenes of joy quickly warped, twisting into horrific reminders of loss as the air quaked with anguished cries. Shadows surged forward, frenzied and hungry, desperate to reclaim the warmth of lives long extinguished. Their pained faces filled my vision, each distorted reflection of my mother, my sister, ancestors eager to reclaim what had been lost. "What have you done?" they demanded. "You will set it right, or you will remain trapped within this curse forever." Each word echoed a morbid reminder of the bond one shared, the sacrifice, the betrayal, the bloodline that pulsed through me like poison. But beneath the weight of their sorrow, a new realization flickered: a path through the chaos, a possibility entwined with the silvery lines of my ancestry. I gasped, feeling warmth surge through me. I must face the truth. Just then, the shadows flickered, eyes narrowing, devious satisfaction brightening their forms. My fingers brushed against the lock of hair, memories of my sister flooding back, her laughter like sunlight breaking through thunderclouds. I remembered the promises we shared, the innocent games of our childhood, and the warmth of familial bonds that eclipsed the darkness lurking within our history. "Open your heart," I chanted, urging the shadows away. "Face the light, the truth of who you are, and who I am." I felt strength flicker within me, stirring the dormant energies of my lineage. The whispers of my ancestors swelled, merging into a hurried chorus. "Yes. Break the cycle. Set us free." With every ounce of determination, I pressed the lock of hair to my heart, invoking the bond of love and memory that connected us. The altar trembled under my force, vibrating with ancestral energy. In that moment, I glimpsed its sorrow and joy intertwined, woven in time, unearthing a harrowing truth that sliced through the shadows engulfing me. Then came the realization: the curse could not be broken without acknowledging the sins of the past, the sacrifices made, the choices that bound me to the darkness. I could release my family, but it would mean binding myself to the echoes of those lost, sharing their fate while preserving their legacy. No. I cried, horror flooding my mind as I realized what must be done. I cannot. But it was too late. The shadows surged forward, consuming me with their hungry grasp, urging me toward the edge of obliteration. I felt them pulling at my essence, tugging and gnashing, the cries of my family echoing, illuminating the truth beneath the weight of their despair. And then, I saw her. Annabelle, her light flickering amidst the storm. "Help us," she echoed softly, pulling at my heartstrings. But in that glimmering moment, a realization washed over me like a cleansing tide: I could not save Annabelle. Not wholly. Not without sacrificing my own essence, a piece of me forever intertwined with the torment of my ancestry. "Forgive me," I whispered, tears streaming down my face as I surrendered. The spectacle of light flared around me in a cyclone of brilliant energy, intertwining my spirit with the shadows, binding me to the legacy of both horror and love. I would become their guardian, a bridge between the worlds, ensuring they were remembered, their stories told. Embrace the truth. The shadows shrieked in unison, screaming as the altar exploded in a brilliant flash of light. I felt my very being unravel, the price of my choice igniting a conflagration within me, basking in the morning glow of dawn breaking over a storm-ripped dawn. "Remember." A voice sang to me, echoing through the abyss as I drifted away, a final farewell. But as I succumbed to the light, laughter and tears intermingled as I became one with their voices, ensuring our history would never be forgotten. Even as I faded, the last sound echoed around me, a whisper that sent shivers down my spine, eternally reverberating: "You will never escape." And just like that, the shadows swallowed the light whole, darkness draping over Annabelle's figure remaining, waiting, watching between two worlds forever entwined in anguish, love, and sacrifice.